All right, and Leah, thanks for moderating today. We're so excited that you've been able to do this. And we did a pre-recorded little tape. So this idea is on audacious anti-poverty ideas. And we figured for the end of our conference, we would have some very good ideas for you. You probably have tons of them, but we went to our go-to team. So Leah King, of course, from the United Way in Tarrant County, Sylvia Acosta, who's the head of the YWCA over in El Paso, Texas. And Leah, let's start with you. I know we're going to do a couple of ideas here, but what's your big idea in terms of ending child poverty today?
Well, one thing I would love to see, and it's something that is actually very doable, and that is to have every childcare facility connected with an older adult. So it's almost like not just adopting a highway, you're adopting a childcare facility. And it's bringing people into the lives of young children who may not have a grandparent or an aunt or uncle that's immediately there and available to them. You're going to have so much inspiration, creativity, energy that happens. It's beneficial in the life of the older adult. It's certainly beneficial in the lives of the children. And we know that when they're supported that way, that ultimately it gets them prepared for learning, it gets them prepared for school, and that education foundation is what ultimately is going to be what eradicates poverty for them and their family.
And you know, Leah, we've seen this idea work in other countries. I remember visiting Sweden a couple of years ago, and they were quick to show me these childcare facilities being built next to senior homes, being integrated with other schools, elementary and secondary. The idea of sort of creating these communities where people help each other seems like we should have thought of this a long time ago, right?
I totally agree. And if you look at other cultures, it's very common. You know, in our culture, we don't necessarily take advantage of the lived experiences of those who are 60 years of age and older. Other cultures, it's very common and normal, and we need to learn from that and take advantage of it. There's so many, if you think about all the ancillary benefits, even from a healthcare perspective for that older adult, that's keeping them engaged, keeping them connected. And the same holds true for that student and the student's family. We know that this is something that works, and we can do this here.
And not only that, but there's been studies. There have been so many studies about the positive growth, both in children and in older adults, when you have intergenerational type of programming. And so it's not like this is an outlandish idea in terms of it's not possible. It hasn't been studied. It hasn't been researched. All of that has already happened. And so I think doing something like that would be very, very helpful. Plus, you go back to intergenerational. It takes a village. It goes back to it takes a village concept. And that's what this is. It's in many communities of color throughout our country. Kids are raised intergenerationally. I lived with my mother, who lived with us, and when my baby was a little baby. And so it was my mother that was teaching her how to walk, and they had that bond. So it's not like we can't do it. We're already doing it, but why not institutionalize it as a program within our country?
That's right.
And it makes a lot of sense. And we could do it now, right? We could do it right now. All right, Sylvia, what's your big idea? Your first big idea?
My big idea is free childcare for all. Like, why can't we do that in our country? Why can't we ensure that children 0 to 3 have the ability to attend childcare so that their parents can go and apply for positions, work, go to school? If we take care of the children, we will make sure that those parents then have the ability to then move up economically, go back to school. All of the things that we hope for our society really lie in our caring for the children of our society. And so if we really want a strong, economy, then let's take care of the babies.
Yeah, and you know, this idea of universal free childcare, in some ways, it's the best use of our taxpayer dollar, right? I mean, this is the biggest bang for your taxpayer buck, is if we invested in early education. When I started at Children at Risk, it was all about the K through 12 schools. But the more you look at the research, the more that you realize that bigger investment right away, from birth through 5 is going to have a huge payoff down the road. And I think we're beginning to recognize that in Texas and in the United States, but we're still slow to adapt where we need to go with this. high quality early education for all. Making it affordable or free is the way to go on this one. Leah, you agree on this?
I couldn't agree more. And the evidence is there. And we know that these programs work. And when you are someone who is trying to learn a new skill as a parent, right? When you know that your child is safe and cared for and learning, then it allows you to focus and it gives that boost to that child. And so the benefits that we all experience as a result of that is exactly what we need to do. I mean, so I'm going to layer on to that, right? And I'm going to say, what if you had free childcare for all and every student starts learning to code, age appropriate coding throughout their times in daycare? And that way we know for a fact that becomes a fundamental and core piece of knowledge that they have. We know what the future looks like in terms of technology and the need to have tech-ready students. Economic development in our communities will definitely be expanded. It just becomes a baseline of knowledge. And how fun and exciting would it be to have that be part of just general curriculum for all childcare facilities? So when you talk about quality, to have something like that available, that's what we should be looking to.
And that's one of these things that that seems so practical that legislators can easily adapt something like that. They see it just seems sort of right on target. I'm going to go outside of the childcare scope and talk a different idea. And this is an idea that probably, if you would ask me 2 years ago, I would have said, I'm not so sure, but universal basic income, right? Andrew Yang ran on this, and I didn't vote for Andrew Yang, and I thought it was a wacky idea. But in a sense, during the pandemic, we had universal basic income. Low-income families got these checks, a couple of checks. A Republican president advocated for us getting these universal basic income checks, though he didn't call it that. And these payments, these stimulus payments, in a sense, really alleviated poverty in our country, almost cut it in half by just for these couple of months during a very tough time for us. That, for me, was the trial that made me think this could work in our country if we had a universal basic income. And I think there's a lot of opposition to something like this. But the fact of the matter is that if we want to cut poverty, if we want to cut child poverty, this universal basic income is an idea. And the tax credit, the child tax credit is something like that, right? Is this idea that parents are getting these checks. We know it's going to have a positive impact on the kids. We know that low-income families, when they get extra money, it goes to their kids. They want to make sure that their kids do well. So I like the idea of a universal basic income. Sylvia, you were going to say
100% on that, but let me add. So this is radical.
Yeah.
Equity. Let's pay women equal for the same job that men make. And let's reduce poverty levels by over half. If you were to pay a woman for the exact same job that a man is paid for with the same qualifications, the exact same amount, we would reduce poverty levels by more than 50% in our entire country. So let's just, I mean, these are really radical ideas. Let's pay women a fair wage, an equitable wage, and let's have universal childcare. These are things that we need to do in our country, and I can't believe that they're radical, but pay equity is what I would say would move this country out of poverty, because we know that women tend to be heads of households, and we know that when women lose their jobs or women get divorced, they are more likely to go into poverty. And so we need to invest in women. And the other thing I would say is we need to stop talking about these issues, and I've said this to you many times, Bob, as women's issues, children's issues, blah, blah, blah. They're economic development issues. That's what these are. And we need to talk about them that way, because then it changes the way that people talk about not just supporting women, but supporting issues that support children.
Let me throw out one more idea for us, and then we'll go around very quickly in the little bit of time we have left. And this is K through 12 education. And this idea is something I've talked about for a number of years. Longer school day, longer school year. The squeaky wheel on this are always affluent parents who want to spend more time with the kids. Maybe there's a mom or dad at home, and I get that. But for most of our low-income working families, the ability to not have someone at home, or to not have to have someone at home when the kids come home is amazing, but also that academic time on task. right? When you can't afford after school activities, you can't afford summer camp, the longer school year, longer school day makes the child in the classroom more. Kids hate my idea, by the way, but parents love this idea of more time on task, more academic time on task. And we know that our school year and the number of school hours we have in our country is very short compared to competing countries, right? We have about 175 school days a year in Texas. In China, we have 220, Korea 230, Germany 210. We are far short of the rest of the world. And so this idea of more time on task for our kids, especially our low-income families, is something that's going to make a difference. All right, we have a couple minutes, 1 or 2 more minutes. Leah, one more idea quickly.
Yes, so I am all in for the longer school year. I'm just going to pile on because I grew up in Germany, and so my neighbors were in school far, their school year looked very different than ours. And so I am all for that. And I think that it helps if you did the dollars and cents math on the learning loss and what we have to spend every year reteaching the same thing. I'm sure the number is staggering, and that alone might be what it takes to help us see it in a different way, because sometimes for us, it comes down to the dollars and cents. That's what it is here in America. And that's okay. Let's do the math and say, we're spending too much money to do this. We can do it better.
Very good. Do you have one last good idea, Sylvia?
No, but I want to add on to your idea, which I think is great, is why don't, instead of let's support school age programs. Let's support after school programs so that you can lengthen that day. Yeah. And when you lengthen that day, you're able to provide creative, fun ways for children to learn, but that every child has access to. So you can extend the school day, but make the school day reinforce what they've already learned, make it fun when they're reinforcing it. And this way, parents that work until 6 or 5:30 have the ability to know that their children are still at school, safe, in a safe environment and learning. So that's what I would add on to your idea.
I think that's really good, right? Learning does not have to be boring. As a matter of fact, I would say if your K through 12 school is not working, you don't need a longer school day because it's not working. We need to have high quality K through 12 school, right. Interesting education, and those out of school activities, they need to be integrated into the school, but learn from the good ones, like Boys and Girls Club and some of those groups that do extraordinary work, the YWCA, the United Ways of the world that are doing great after school programs. I think we need to learn from those that we know are doing a good job. There are a lot of interesting ideas when it comes to ending poverty, but as you can see, some of them are just basic. They're just things that we should be doing naturally. They're things that other countries are doing already. And I'll end with a little story. My wife has these Swedish relatives, and they were visiting us here in Texas. The Swedes love to come to Texas, and we're looking at a remote control. And I said, well, you could talk into that remote control and get what you need. And they laughed. And I said, oh, no, it's true. This is a talking remote control. In Sweden, you may have solved poverty, but we've solved the remote control problem in the United States. And it's true. It's funny, but it's true. There are countries that have really solved this. We can look to them. Not that we in Texas like to look to Scandinavian countries for examples, but it's follow the research, follow the evidence. So with that, thank you, Sylvia, very much. Thank you, Leah. And Leah, I guess we're going to send you right back live to the conference. Thank you all.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.